our village board of trustees. If I tried to introduce them, I get the names mixed up and I'd massacre them, so thank you all for that. Our village manager, George Hickswara, our hardworking village employee, Matt, back of the room, sets all these things up for us, and the many members of the village departments that make this all possible, and especially who I call C3, Civic Center Cindy, who is responsible for all of this. So thanks to everyone. So we are here today to honor service members who did their duty in war and in peace. But more specifically, we're here today to honor 5 veterans whose names have been added to the beautiful monument just outside this building, the Arapache Place of Peace. These are Americans who did the important things. Their actions were in support and protection of their buddies, their families, their loved ones, our nation, and our way of life. Whether they are still with us or whether they have passed on, may all of them and all who cared for them and loved them find peace here, today, and in the future. And thank you for being here. It's important that each and every one of you is here. We have a meaningful program for you today, beginning with our opening ceremony. Today's national anthem will be performed by Tina Fisher. Tina is the co-director of the Children's Theater Program for the Village of Orland Park. She is affiliated with the Beth Shan Association and Elim Christian Services. Tina would like to thank all veterans for their service to our country, especially her grandfather, Jack Bell, who was a Marine. She also thanks her several uncles, aunts, cousins, and friends who served our country. We thank her for coming and for sharing her talent in honor of our veterans. Please stand if you are able for the presentation and posting of the colors by a combined color guard provided by American Legion Orland Memorial Post 111 and Veterans of Foreign Wars and Orland Palis Reber-Tesmond Memorial Post 2604. Please remain standing for the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. Tina?
Color guard, Steve Hutt. Rifleman, port arms. Forward, march. Detail, halt. Prepare to post. Post. Prepare to post flag. And we post it.
Please join me.
Present arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, no bombs burn still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Port arms. Right face. Forward march.
Please be seated. Thank you, Tina, and thank you to our combined color guard and honor guard. This morning's blessing will be provided by Pastor Don Borling of All Saints Lutheran Church. We value Pastor Borling and his unceasing support of veterans in our community. He's always here for us on our special days. Pastor Borling.
It's an absolute honor to be here, and I'm very proud that my cousin John is going to be speaking in just a little bit. Lord, today we gather, honoring the men and women who have given from the very heart and soul of who they are. You know, I do so many things every day, the common, the ordinary, the routine, and so many of you gathered here today make that possible. From cutting the lawn, to walking the dog, to making an extra pot of coffee, the freedom to do ordinary things every day. The world can be a restless and a harsh place. And yet somehow, Lord, you lead us to the still and peaceful waters of goodness and grace. Help me exude your spirit in the way I treat others. Help me walk in the path of freedom that our veterans have carved out for us. God bless our veterans. You light up our lives by just being you. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Borland. We always enjoy having you with us. One of the things I enjoy most about being the MC of our Orland Park observances on Veterans Day and Memorial Day is that I get to introduce someone I am proud to call a friend, a man who's a skilled leader, a man who consistently demonstrates those qualities those of us in the community of veterans value so highly. He has several things to do for us here this morning, so let's get him up here to do it. And please give a warm welcome and show of support to our mayor, Air Force combat veteran Keith Pico.
Here's the award.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you to everyone for coming out today. I'd like to thank our elected officials that are here today, Trustee Compass, Milani, Katsinas, Radishevsky, and Trustee Healy. I'd also like to, we're here to thank all the veterans, obviously, but I want to thank all of the families of veterans, because those of us who are veterans know that we could not have done this without your support, so thank you very much. We are celebrating Veterans Day today. The history of Veterans Day is relatively simple. It was originally called Armistice Day and was changed to Veterans Day in 1954 to honor all veterans. The Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28th of 2019 at the Palace of Versailles, which, by the way, is very beautiful, and I recommend you all visit, to formalize the end of the Great War and the cessation of hostilities that actually went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Hence, Veterans Day is being celebrated annually on November 11th, and why we are celebrating on the 11th day of the 11th month at 11 a.m. Since that time, we have fought several wars that have names: World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, the Gulf War, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. We have also had a plethora of other skirmishes and flexing of our military muscles that you may or may not be aware of. Today, I want to honor 3 special World War II veterans in attendance today. My friend Rich Orland, who recently turned 98 and stormed the beaches at Normandy as a medic in the Army. Also Raymond Pefezik from Oak Lawn, who was in the Army Medical Battalion from 1942 to 1946 and was stationed in Europe and is the last remaining survivor of his battalion. Lastly, Clifford Randall, an Orland Park resident who was a private in World War II, went back into service as a dentist in Korea. Thank you all for your service. Please give them a big hand. All of us took an oath of office. Specifically, my oath was that having been appointed a captain in the United States Air Force, I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. So help me God. There are some key words here. Defend the Constitution of the United States. The core of the United States does not rest in a political party, our president, or the press. The core of the United States is our Constitution. It's not just a piece of paper, and it is not a living and breathing document. It is what our nation, the greatest in the history of the earth, is founded upon. Against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Our founding fathers knew that citizens needed to be protected against, 1, the free people from foreign enemies and invaders, but also to protect honest, responsible, hardworking citizens within the nation from domestic lawbreakers who would use coercion, fraud, or force to deprive others of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservations or purpose of evasions. Our veterans took this risk of their own free will. Today, we are here to honor those veterans. An anonymous quote from the 1970s says, "War is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feeling which thinks that nothing is worth war is much worse. A man who has nothing for which he is willing to fight, nothing he cares about more than his own personal safety, is a miserable creature who has no chance of being free unless made and kept so by the exertions of better men than himself." I want to thank all of the veterans here today for their service, and today I join all of you, or all of us in this room, by giving you the recognition you deserve. Thank you. It is also my honor to give the first ever Orland Park Veterans Commission Patriot Award to Reverend Don Borling, and if he could please join me up here, I'd appreciate it. Pastor Borling has led All Saints Lutheran Church for over 47 years, and he has given the prayers at all our military service since before I was mayor. This award celebrates American patriotism by honoring everyday heroes such as Pastor Borling that show the dedication to our veterans, our nation, and the values we hold dear. Pastor Borling embodies everything that Americans stand for, and I want to thank him for his passion in aiding our veteran heroes. I am honored to present Pastor Don Borling with this award. Thank you for our service to our country, your flock, and to the community.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, it is my pleasure and honor to read the names of those being added to the wall. Please stand if you are able when I call your name. Clifford S. Randall, U.S. Army. Robert James Evans, U.S. Army. Joseph J. Lasezzi, U.S. Army. Lucchese. Robert E. Dubleby, U.S. Army. Charles F. Nelson, U.S. Navy. Thank you all for putting your name on the wall. Now, lastly, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce retired United States Air Force Major General John Borling. General Borling graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy in 1963. He is a highly decorated fighter pilot whose awards include the Silver Star, 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, and 3 Bronze Stars with Valor. He has piloted many aircraft, including the F-15, the F-16, the F-4, the SR-71, U-2, B-52, and B-1 bombers. General Borling was shot down in June 1966 in North Vietnam. He spent over 6.5 years as a POW before he was released. After his release, he returned to flying duty and joined the 1st Fighter Wing with the new F-15 in 1976. He later commanded the famous hat-in-the-ring 94th Tactical Fighter Squadron. He is a graduate of the National War College and Harvard Business School and has several senior commands, including as an Air Division Commander at Minot Air Force Base and Head of Operations for Strategic Air Command in Omaha. And in that position, he directed SAC's support of hostilities in the First Gulf War. After his military retirement, he returned to Chicago as the CEO of United Way and helped create the first Chicago Military Academy. It is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce a true American hero, General John Borling.
After all of that, this better be pretty darn good, huh? But what is really darn good was that my cousin Don, who's the better part of the family, was recognized for something that means a lot to him, I know, and means a lot to the family. You should know also that the Memorial Day ceremony in Chicago, which is done at the Logan statue, which among his other attributes to include congressman, senator, vice presidential nominee, Civil War hero, Major General John A. Logan. He's the guy south of the Hilton there with on the horse with the standard. He created Memorial Day, and Don has been the guy who provides the invocation at that ceremony before racing back out here to Orland Park to take part in other things. So I want to acknowledge the continuing service of my cousin, and as I said, the strong part of the family, Don Borling. I've never done a double mic thing before. Fighter pilots are supposed to have great hands, so we'll see how long this lasts before they go clattering to the floor. But I wanted to wander the room a bit to be able to look all you folks in the eyes. This is a solemn day. Veterans Day is a solemn day. We do, as the mayor pointed out, celebrate service, past and present. And he went through and gave us the litany of activities surrounding the beginnings of the day. It was actually, if I can flesh it out just a bit more, in 1919 when President Wilson formally declared that it would be Armistice Day. And then, as he indicated, the Congress in 1938 finally passed a law making it a day in perpetuity, if you will, which we tried to change after '54 when Eisenhower made it Veterans Day, when they combined all the holidays, including Memorial Day, into a 3-day weekend so you could have a good picnic, right? But there was an uproar in America. We wanted Armistice Day, Veterans Day, to stay November 11th. And so in 1974, Jerry Ford, President Ford, took it upon himself to change it and get it ratified that it would forever be November 11th and get that special sense of what it means for us to pause. And not only do we pause, but so do many of the allies of that war, the Brits, the Aussies, the Canadians, for days of remembrance, because it means something to us that we remember. It means something to us. Now, you know me a little bit, but I need to get you to know you better. Can I just see a show of hands? Well, since yesterday, was a special day. Everybody knows what it was, right? 240-year birthday of the Marine Corps. How many Marines do we have in the crowd? Marines? You're alone, unarmed, and unafraid? There's only one Marine. Is there another Marine? There's another. No, you need to help me. I now, in deference to the Marines, need to speak very slowly and distinctly so that, but you can't, the Marines are my favorite force, actually, even better than the Air Force. No, they're combined arms. You have to have a lot of respect for Marines. I've never done this before. Give me your shoe. No, give me your shoe. Seriously, I want it. Give me your shoe. Well, this will take a while. It's got strings and things, you know, so, I mean, all right, thank you very much. There's been a rumor that has been circulating in the Air Force for a number of years that Marines write important things in their shoes. And I thought you'd like to have this component added to your Veterans Day commemoration. Well, I'll be TGIF. This is Friday, isn't it? So that stands for? No, toes going first. There you go. All right, we got it. Is he a good sport? Help him with the strings to get that back on, all right? Yeah. You know, it was George Bernard Shaw who suggested that we think about things seriously and then we try to say it with a bit of levity and a bit of resilient American humor, even gallows humor. It was commented that I was in North Vietnam for about 6.5 years, and it was people said, well, why so long? And I just say I'm a slow learner. But I normally, by the way, sometimes I start this thing out with, how many of you have heard me speak before? Anybody here? Oh, you don't count, but well, you're easily deluded then if you're back, all right? But the rest of you are virgins, but you will not remain so long, all right? That's the deal. But we started with the Marine Corps, and again, the birthday last night meant a lot. I've spoken at Marine Corps birthday. My wife has spoken at a Marine Corps birthday event, a major one in Washington, D.C. She was much better than I was, which she reminds me of all the time. But I don't want to go on without seeing a show of hands for the Army, please. Army. Good guy. I know a lot of Vietnam guys in the crowd. Welcome home. And the Navy, please. All right, Navy guys. Good. Army, Navy, Air Force, Air Force. All right, you can raise your hand, right? You got it? All right, thank you. There's different language that exists within the service. Coast Guard, by the way, I should mention, anybody Coast Guard here? Okay. They tend to be forgotten, but they do a heck of a job for America, not just along our shorelines, but ranging the world to do things. But if we were to ask, for example, the Army people here to secure this building, they would get guys with rifles, M1s, these guys are carrying M1s, and they would post concertina wire and guards, maybe some mines out there, and the building would be secure, right? If you asked the Navy to secure the building, the Navy would come in, make sure that the blinds were down, the desk drawers were cut, the safes were locked, waste paper baskets emptied. They'd lock the door and leave. Building is secure. You ask the Air Force to secure the building. We tried to get a 5-year lease on the place, assuming it was air conditioned, relatively near a golf course. But the Marines, You tell the Marines to secure a building, they go in, kick down the door, kill everybody inside, and set up a command post. Why do we love the Marines? We've got World War II veterans with us today. I wear a ring that I prize. I'm not sure I can get it off with these microphones. Don, hang on to these a minute. I'll trade you. I've just given Don a ring that was fashioned by the bombardier of my uncle, Uncle Dick, who was on a B-24 and shot down on the 7th mission over Leipzig in Germany. And they were wearing a ring made by the bombardier of that metal that, you can pass it around. I'm sure this crowd is not going to take one of the most important things in my life next to my wedding ring and my academy ring. But the bombardier had made a ring with a wolf's head on it, and they called it their Get Me Home ring, because only the 4 officers in that B-24 got out. All were captured, wounded, but made it out after about 22 months in Stalag Luft 1 South Camp. And that ring was made after the war in celebration. It has the officer crest on it, and they'll be passing it around, and you can see it. Or you can see it later when I'm out signing books at the table. Well, when I got shot down on the 1st of June, '66, I was on my 97th mission, unofficially. Officially, it was about 113, but that's what got logged, 97. And I'd volunteered for another 100 missions. I'd called Myrna. You didn't have cell phones in those days. You had to use Mars and things like that. And I'd called Myrna. I've been married now 59 years to Myrna Homestead from the south side of Chicago. We were high school sweethearts. Now there's a slow learner for you, I'll tell you. But she keeps hoping she can train me. You know, that's the way it works. See, women marry hoping to change or train their husbands, and men marry hoping their wives never change. The great mysteries of life. Anyway, going back to the ring, I told Myrna I'm going to stay for another 100, but got shot down by ground fire. And for those of you who know anything about ejection seats, I don't recommend that you ride one, but I came out upside down almost and low and fast, and we got taken out by ground fire. And you get a pop, and then you swing. I got a pop and hit, and rolled down a furrowed hill about a quarter mile or so. Lucky me, because there's karst and stuff on either side and jungle. And roll up at the bottom, all broken up. Broken back and couldn't walk, and a few other minor inconveniences. And I managed to crawl into a log where I promptly passed out because of fear and shock, but enough that the search parties missed me, and I was able to get down to Highway 1, which is about out where the flags are. There, if I got a staff and crawled down, thinking that the smart play would be to hijack a truck, right? I mean, I'm from the south side of Chicago. I know how to do this. Yeah, you hijack a truck and have them take you to the coast, and it's only 10 minutes and 43 seconds. Oh, wait a minute, that's at 420 knots or 420 miles an hour. So anyway, I got in the middle of the road and, in fact, pulled out my 6-shooter and stopped the truck. And that truck was going to be my salvation. Unfortunately, it was filled with North Vietnamese regular troops. And very shortly, I had guns coming out of, well, I could say I had a lot of guns pointed at me. And I elected not to die in a ditch that night. And that started the long period of incarceration. But the thing that I had on my dog tags, and as they stripped me naked, I know this is too graphic for all of you, I'll just unbutton my coat here to give you an idea, but I I had my boots on. They took the boots too, but they ripped the dog tags off my neck where I had the wolf's head ring, that get me home ring that my uncle wore, and I never saw it again. But I did think that is not a get me home ring. That's a get me shot down ring. So I told my uncle that, and he really got mad at me, but he still, when he passed, made sure that I got the ring that is circulating through the room with the officer crest on it. It's dear to me in ways I really can't express. But I'll give you a Paul Harvey aspect of it all. In about 1970, I've been down 4 years. We would be kept in cells about this wide, this area here, and about that long, with no windows, no ventilation, a naked light bulb, and there might be 1, 2, or 3 people in that little space for years. And you had only an ability to talk one to another via a tap code. How many people know about the tap code? You do? The tap code was devised as a way that we could keep the faith, make sure that we were talking one to another in terms of having a chain of command, which was forbidden. One more time. Try it again. And it's in the book. The book Taps on the Walls. We'll have a bunch of out there for those of you who might want a copy of this thing. But this tap code arrays the alphabet in 5 rows, 5 columns, and E, for example, would be tap 1 and then tap 5. G would be 2, 2. You know it, sir? You ought to get the book and learn it, because the next time you get thrown in jail, you'll be able to. There was a time when I used that line. I was in Denver, actually. And this guy got this doe in the headlight look. He said, "How did you know? How did you know?" Anyway, look at that. I made him drop his phone. Maybe there's some truth here. Truth will out. But on that ring, so we're in that little room that I told you about. I was alone at the time. And there was movement and banging, and somebody moved in next door. So I got on the wall and tapped, "Hi, John Borling. Who are you?" And the guy tapped back, "Pop Kern." Richard Paul Kern was 57 years old. I know it's hard to imagine anybody being that old. I mean, I can't imagine being 57 anymore. But Pop had been a World War II guy, because he taps back to me, and because he was so old, and had passed over Korea, but got called up for Vietnam again and gotten shot down in Vietnam. And he tapped back, "No, this is your Dick Borling." I said, No, John." He said, "No, Dick Borling, I was with you in Stalag Luft 1 South Camp in World War II. This guy had been with my Uncle Dick, and now he's next door to me." And about 2 years later, we moved together, and that's the Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, on that ring that is moving around the room. And I use that as just a singular instance of the stories that all of us have from our service. All of us have stories that mean a lot. Most of it concerns one really important thing: our reputation. Our reputation. Because being up there in North Vietnam, we were no different than anyone else. We just wanted to, we wanted to survive. but we wanted to survive with honor. We wanted you to be proud of us. Just like we're proud of the World War II veterans who are still with us. They call you guys the greatest generation. You and lucky wives with you. And I'm sorry to say I dispute that. I'm not sorry to say, I do dispute that. I don't want you to be the greatest generation. That you're a great generation, that we revere you and respect you, but if our best days are not ahead of us, we are doing it wrong as a nation. And I personally look to the veterans communities and their extended families to try to keep it going, much like the mayor talked to, so that our best days are in fact ahead of us. So it's with great respect that I use you as training aids today, but you've been used for training aids for a long time. Hope there's a lot of runway out there yet. Somebody asked me once, how do you know when your life's mission is complete? You know what the answer is? If you're breathing, it isn't. If you're breathing, it isn't. Once again, it's that special charge, I think, that falls down as people celebrate Veterans Day. We veterans celebrate the experiences we've had, the families we've influenced and been influenced by, in order to create a circumstance for America, the last best hope in this world, that we will not only endure, that we will prosper. And as I mentioned down the way, going back to those long days in Vietnam where the months and years tended to run by quickly, but the days came hard. The days came hard. And so we did very much, as I say, want to survive, but we wanted to survive with honor, so you would be proud of us. And the chore was, and how many of you have been runners in your life, or walkers now, runners and things? You know, if you run long distances, Don ran marathons, and I did too, but imagine running a marathon. And when you finish, they say you can't stop. You got to keep going. And that was kind of the circumstance, that you had to run an uncertain race. You had to make time an ally. That unforgiving moment, if you will, that changed your life in a second, and then you found yourself in a race that had no end and had to make time an ally. So in my case, I wrote a book in my mind. We didn't have anything to write with, so I just started creating poetry. I'm an engineer, but I've always loved literature, so I started to create. That's being the essence of the human condition. It's a way to stay sane. And little by little, I accumulated a lot of poetry and tapped it through the walls so that my wife and little girl, who was 3 months old when I left, she would be 7.5 when I walked in the door. And she's more like me. And her sister, who we had after the war, is more like her mother, so you can go figure that one out. But I kept this book because I wanted them to have legacy. And a number of people that I lived close to or by helped me keep this memorized all those years. I put it into a tape recorder. Actually, it was a cassette recorder. I had no idea what it was. On the day I was released, I went to the BX to get a tape recorder, you know, with the tapes and the Akai and Tandberg stuff. And the guy hands me this shoebox thing. I said, no, I don't want a radio, I want a tape recorder. And the guy said, no, this is a tape recorder, a cassette recorder. Now, if I handed you a cassette recorder, you'd have no idea what it was, which life goes on. But I started to download on that, on that day those accumulated poems in my mind and did put them into that cassette recorder. And then 40 years later, if you know one thing about veterans, especially if they're combat experienced, they don't want to talk about those times. A long period has to elapse. So after 40 years, John McCain, who I lived with for a time, came to me and some other people in New York and here in Chicago and said, well, you got to publish those things. So we did, and now 35,000 copies later, it continues to attract a fair bit of attention. So for those of you who are looking for Christmas gifts, I must limit you to 100 copies a person. And this is normally where I enlist somebody to go chain the doors. I don't want to alarm you. It's just a sales technique. No, if you want to come by, please do. If you don't, that's okay. I've got them all inscribed, but I will be willing to inscribe them personally if you choose. And my assistant, Terry, who had the good sense to marry a Marine, she's hugged an awful lot of guys, though. I noticed that today. So I just thought I'd let you know. Not me yet. I have high hopes, but anyway, so that's the deal on this book. They asked me to bring it along, so I brought it along. Actually, that's not totally true. My wife wants to renovate bathrooms. We have 7 bathrooms in our house. Maybe I better up that to 150. I don't know what. People say, how do you carry on in the British sense of the word? How do we do it? Life, while it may be the pursuit of happiness, life brings punishment and reward to us all. And I've often thought that the mark of the man and the woman is how they deal with those periods of suffering that come to us all. So I leave you with the thought that today we've taken some conversational steps together. You've been most gracious. I'm grateful. But if you got something that's going to carry you through the day, through tomorrow, through next year, think about this. Just keep marching. Keep marching. Pick them up, lay them down. You'll be surprised how far you get, and do so with a sense that you carry your own weather with you. Now, people in combat, we know cold, we know hot, we know wet, but if we can just keep marching as a nation, there's no telling how far we'll go. It's been my great honor to go a small distance with you this morning. Again, thank you for being fair citizens of a great land. Let's go.
I want to thank, somehow I must hit the switch. Am I there? Am I there? There I am. Okay. Thank you, General Borling. I'm gone again. Hello? Try that. Go. I guess only one of us should push buttons. Okay. That would not be me. So, General Borling, thank you very much. I can't imagine anyone we could have had here today who could have spoken to us with that message. Thank you very much. Now, there's a part of General Borling's bio that I reserved for myself, okay, and that is that he was responsible for writing, narrating, and directing a 2022 Memorial Day video called We Are Americans. It's an awesome video. It's 30 minutes long, plus or minus a few seconds. It's available on YouTube, free to see. And ladies and gentlemen, it went right to the top of my you gotta see this video list. Okay? Now there's another one out there made by some guy named Reagan. Yeah, Ronald Reagan, got the same title.
We Are Americans,
Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time. But you can't copyright titles.
Yeah, that's it. So, should you have the opportunity to go on YouTube and some other services, We Are Americans is a gotta-see thing. It's amazing. So thank you for that effort too, sir. Okay. We now welcome back to the stage, or our podium here, our vocalist for the day, Tina Fisher. She's going to lead us in singing God Bless America, and we're going to do the first verse twice. All right? That way you can find your voice and really let it go. Okay? All right, Tina.
Thank you. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountain to the prairie, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. All of you. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Tina. This brings us close to the end, so please stand if you are able for the rendering of honors, the playing of taps, and the retirement of the colors. Special thanks to the combined color guard provided by American Legion Orland Memorial Post 111 and Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Orland Palos Reber Tessman Memorial Post 2604, and to our bugler this morning, Navy veteran Alan de Normandy, a member of Veterans Voices military group here in Orland Park.
Color guard, feet cut. Forward, arms. Right, face. Forward, march. Okay. Left, right please. Prepare to retrieve colors. Retrieve colors. Left, face. Left. Your military left, not your forward march.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our Veterans Day observance for 2022. Thank you for coming and participating and remembering and honoring those who have kept us free. 4 quick announcements. Number 1, whoever has the general's ring, would you please return it? Okay. Number 2, the general will be signing copies of his book, and we have cookies and coffee to the rear in the hallway.
Ask him about the boneyard.
And we also have the certificates for the people who were posted to our memorial. So thank you all for being